everybody. My name is Maggie Cronin and I'm the mayor of the town of Cardston, located on traditional Blackfoot Confederacy land. On this September 30th, I want to thank all of our dignitaries, invited guests, and members of our communities who are here today to mark this historic National Day for Truth and Reconciliation. A day of reflection on a dark page of our Canadian history. I'd like to recognize MP Glenn Motz, Emily Joseph Scow, County Reeve Randy Bullock, Elder Rod First Rider, Elder Mary Atoa, Arnold Mountain House and his drum group, members of Town Council, member of County Council, members of the RCMP, Mr. Austin Nunn, Westwind School Division and Cardston West Stake Representative, and Mr. Kelly Thomas, Cardston Alberta Stake Representative, and Town of Cardston CAO and staff members. Thank you all. Following the prayer offered by Elder Mary Atoa, the program will unfold as follows. I will offer some remarks, followed by MP Glenn Motz, Emily Joseph Scow, Reeve Randy Bullock, and Elder Rod First Rider. To conclude this day for truth and reconciliation, Arnold Mountain Horse will sing a song in honor of the lost lives of young children on residential schools, and his drum group will then sing an honor song. We will proceed as follows. Mary, if you are here, please come to give the prayer.
Okay, kita connect matsim ko. Nita niko matsi sisuyaki. Nita katsimoy. Nita ko to mi sita piatsimoy ta katsita iya piatsimoy. Okay, katsimoy ko. Ayo it's bad to be. Kita matsim pinanan kaksistikoy. Kimmo kinnan, istamatso kinna sukapi, hikinapi, ukamotapi. Ayo kimmato kinnan, ninnanix, existinnanix, naachsinnanix, nukusinnanix, nissukusinnanix. Taksapiatsumui. Inasmuch as this day is designated as Truth and Reconciliation by the Canadian government, we're grateful for this special day set aside for the survivors of the Indian residential schools. We ask that Thou may bless those families who have lost loved ones in the residential schools, that they may be blessed, that they may be blessed with comfort and peace, and that they may be able to endure the experiences they had at boarding school and the loss of loved ones. We ask that Thou may bless us as communities living side by side, that we may, and the rest of Canada, that they may educate themselves about our history, and bless us that we may learn to live side by side, and that we may have a desire to get along and to better our situation, and that we may be caring and work together. Each better be a way acknowledge Thy hand in all things, only us set aside hard feelings and that we can move forward. We thank thee for this beautiful land that thou hast prepared for us and all that thou hast placed upon it for enjoyment and use. We're grateful again for this lovely, beautiful day and ask that thou may, for the rest of this program, those that are involved, that thy Spirit may be with them. And these things we say and do in the name of our Lord and Savior Jesus Christ. Amen.
Welcome. It is indeed a wonderful day where we can see members of the reserve and members of town and those who have traveled from far away to join us on this very historic day for truth and reconciliation. As I said earlier, it is a time to remember the loss of the children's lives on residential schools and of the missing and murdered Indigenous women and children and girls. But it is also a time to reflect on our past and on the need to build for the future stronger relationship between our communities. In my opinion, this can only happen through awareness, education, and a change of heart and mind. I was asked to talk about the baby steps that the town have taken toward truth and reconciliation throughout the years. It all started in 2007, the year the Truth and Reconciliation Commission was created. It was the year the first Cardston Moses Lake powwow was held in town, spearheaded by the late Oliver Shouting, with the support of Arnold Mountain Horse and his community, and former Mayor Rick Scow. This powwow and yearly subsequent powwows were to create cultural awareness and intended to heal and build bridges of understanding between our communities. The last pre-COVID powwow was held in 2019 in the honor of missing and murdered women and girls, Indigenous women and girls. It was a very touching and moving experience. To develop an understanding of Indigenous matters, here are some of the actions that were taken in town. We had presentation to council members, staff, and citizens of our town by a friend and former councillor Dexter Broussette on the intergenerational trauma caused by the legacy of the residential school system. We participated in a blanket exercise and in a 60-scoop seminar for staff and council members. Office staff and council members were given the opportunity to take a University of Alberta course on Indigenous history, pre-colonization, and colonization time, given from an Indigenous perspective by an Indigenous professor. All town employees are invited to take an Indigenous awareness training as part of their condition of employment. As a concrete step to action, in June of this year, we participated in the unveiling of this Niitsitapi monument as a memorial to the children who died on residential schools and in honor of the mothers and children who died in the Biggest Massacre, a joint project between the town and Miss Baldwin's First Nations high school students. Furthermore, this year, on June 21st, National Indigenous People Day, we held a ceremony with the raising of the Blackfoot Confederacy flag to be flown permanently aside our Canadian and Alberta flags, a meaningful way to acknowledge the presence of our Indigenous residents in our town. As a note, 1 in 5 residents is of Indigenous descent in our town. There is yet a lot more to do towards the calls to action from Senator Sinclair's report on Truth and Reconciliation. I truly believe that Canadians have been deeply touched from coast to coast by the reports of unmarked graves on so many residential schools, because every child matters. I also believe that as Canadians we are embarking on a new journey towards truth and reconciliation. I appreciate the words of Peter Meehan, the President and Vice Chancellor of St. Jerome's Catholic University, who said, "We know that all journeys represent periods of trial, hardship, learning, and discovery. However, in their most hopeful sense, they lead to healing, learning, and human growth. We should want that for ourselves. On this September 30th, this is truly my wish for our town, our neighboring communities, our province, and our country." Thank you. We will now hear from MP Glenn Martz.
Okay. Good morning, everyone. It's great to be here and celebrate this day and honor this day. As we know, the National Day for Truth and Reconciliation is designated to address our dark history of Canada's residential schools program. As Justice Sinclair said, reconciliation is not just an Aboriginal problem, it is a Canadian problem. It involves all of us. Today we remember and honor those we lost, the survivors, their families, and communities, while recognizing the history and legacy impacts that residential schools have had on Indigenous Canadians, including right here in Southern Alberta. As the Commission noted, we cannot have reconciliation without the truth of what was done by successive federal governments and by religious leaders to First Nations and Aboriginal peoples across this country. While the revelation of mass graves of residential schools confirmed what survivors and their families already suspected, it was an eye-opening moment for many Canadians. Today is the day in which all Canadians can learn the painful truth about this dark chapter in Canada's past and the present realities for many Indigenous Canadians. Today is the beginning towards ending ignorance. We cannot move forward if we do not move forward together. And today we must acknowledge and address our legacy in Canada and advance reconciliation. I hope today is just another step on the long journey to healing, developing stronger communities, creating empathy, and addressing inequities. As our Governor General Simon recently noted, we need to stand side by side with grace and humility and work together to build a better future for all. Thank you.
Thank you, Glenn, and thank you, Mayor Cronin, for your remarks, and thank you, Elder Mary Atoa, for your beautiful opening prayer. Good morning, everyone. My name is Joseph Scow, and I am the MLA for Cardston Siksika. I'm honored by the invitation to join you today and share a few words on the first National Day of Truth and Reconciliation. On this day, we commemorate the children, or in Blackfoot, Pukeks, who died while attending residential schools, as well as survivors, families, and communities that will still live and cope with the trauma and the grief caused by these events. When we reflect on the great tragedies in world history, we're drawn to events that took place before our time. We would like to think that society has evolved. But the last residential school located in Canada, in Saskatchewan, was closed in 1996, 25 years ago. At the time, I was 13. To think that such events could take place in this great country of Canada, but not only here, but during my lifetime, is heart-wrenching. The grieving process has 5 steps: denial, anger, bargaining, depression, and acceptance. Since the last residential school was closed, Indigenous communities across Canada have been working to navigate these steps in a quest for peace. Sadly, 4 months ago, a horrific discovery was made in Kamloops, British Columbia, where the bodies of 215 First Nations children were found in unmarked graves. The horrific discovery not only rocked Canada, it also brought to light one of the darkest parts of our country's history. It also reopened old wounds and threw Indigenous people back in the grieving cycle. It would be wrong for me to even pretend to understand the pain and grief suffered by those who were forced into Canada's residential schools. Having spoken to some of the survivors, even they struggle to find words to describe the events that took place at the hands of others. And as much as I would like to undo the hurt and the pain inflicted, I cannot. But I can remember. Remember that although they were only a few decades removed from these tragic events, that they happened and that they can never be repeated ever again. I can learn about those who were lost and those who were lucky enough to return home, so that I can teach my own children what happened. Teach them that we're all God's children, that teach them that everyone deserves love and respect. And as my 3 children are here today, Olive, Atlas, and Ulysses, if I die a man knowing that you learn to love and respect others, I will die a happy man. And finally, promise to do better. As I look around, I see I'm joined by many elected officials and friends and even family. And as elected officials, we are uniquely positioned to make a difference in our respective levels of government, and I am grateful. Grateful for the steps already taken to work towards reconciliation. Thank you, Mayor Cronin, for working diligently to improve relations with the Blackfoot people, Indigenous communities, including raising the Blackfoot flag in front of the courthouse, being present for the Cardston Candlelight Vigil, and being present here today, and for your kind remarks. Thank you, MP Glenn Motts, for being part of a House of Commons that approved this as a statutory holiday, and also for being part of a party that on the 11th of June in 2008 issued an apology through Prime Minister Stephen Harper, acknowledging, an apology to the Aboriginal people, acknowledging Canada's role in Indigenous residential schools. I am proud of our own government that is committed to assist with funding to further the investigation of former residential schools, investigations that are led by Indigenous organizations, with the Government of Alberta respectfully committing resources and finances wherever they are needed. So much work has been done, but there's so much work to do. And I'm committed, along with other elected officials, to ensure that we work towards reconciliation, healing, so that all those who are suffering and dealing with this generational trauma, they can find peace. In closing, I would like to thank all of you for being here today to commemorate this National Day of Truth and Reconciliation. I am heartbroken by the tragic events of the past, but dare I say, I am optimistic about the future, one that will forever remember and teach. Thank you to the town of Cardston for hosting this event, as well as all those who contributed to the organization and creation of this beautiful monument behind me. I look forward to commemorating this National Day of Truth and Reconciliation every year. Thank you very much.
Good morning, everyone. We have a great group of people gathered here this morning, and I am proud to be here as a representative of Cardston County. My name is Randy Bullock. I bring you greetings on behalf of the county staff, administration, and also all the area residents within our boundaries. Thank you for being here today on this first ever National Day of Truth and Reconciliation. I'd like to acknowledge the presence of members of the local blood tribe here today. Sitting behind me, Elder Rod Firstrider, and I can see many other Indigenous members of the community here today. Thank you for being here. Thank you for the other elected officials that are also present here today. Currently, just above the hill here where our county office is located, we have a Canadian flag hanging at half-mast. In recognition of this day, we also have an orange flag hanging there as well as we acknowledge this day, the first ever, the Day of Truth and Reconciliation. Thank you for the opportunity of being here to remember and acknowledge the significance of a past that was unheard, ignored, and overlooked. As we learn about history, we often learn things that are troubling, and we contemplate the hardships, pain, and sorrows of humankind. Today we are focusing on those troubled times experienced by our Indigenous neighbors. Cardston County shares a huge border with the largest First Nation reserve in all of Canada, the Blood Reserve. It is truly a magnificent landscape, and we are all very privileged to live in the shadows of the Rocky Mountains. Today we are here to listen and to learn and to act, and to navigate a path forward as we help Indigenous communities heal and find hope. The truest source of hope is found in God, the Great Spirit who is the creator of the universe, who provides justice and mercy for all, especially today for our neighbors, our Indigenous friends. Let us trust in Him as the ultimate provider of truth and reconciliation. Let us seek Him as our guide as we press forward. The ways and understandings of mankind is flawed in many circumstances. Let us learn from history and resolve not to make the same mistakes twice. Let us learn to forgive those who do wrong and trespass against us. Lastly, let us be optimistic about our future. We have everything to look forward to living in this modern time. It's a wonderful time to be living. We would like to invite the Blood Band and its members. We'd like them to know of our concern for them, and that our doors are always open at Cardston County. We look forward to engaging with them and helping them in any way possible. We are your friends, and friends lean on each other. Thank you once again, everyone, for being here today. This is a great first event of this kind happening across Canada, and thank you once again.
Okay. Si kokana exmatsin pokwa. Nestuan na ko matom kitupi. Hello everyone. I'm happy to see all of you. Glad to see all of you. My name is My Blackfoot name is First Rider, Matoom Hokitopi. I was asked to give a brief background of my residential school upbringing, and I'm a survivor. I will talk about a little bit of my encounter with the residential school. It is not a happy life that we were brought up. The thing that we must understand as a parent, and it is very difficult to disclose what has happened to us while we're growing up and residing in a residential school. There was a lot of things that happened to us. When we first arrived at the residential school, we were given a number. My number has stuck in my head. My number was 29. And for all the years that I was in residential school, that was my number. My name didn't apply. It was a number. As I left the residential school, I still have a number, and it's 1541. That is a treaty number the government gave us. Each and every one of us that are with the blood tribe members, we all have a number, and that will stay with us for the rest of our lives. The government done that to us. And these are some of the hardships that we go through even now after we left the residential school. In order to prove that we are First Nations, blood tribe members, if we don't have an ID with us, we are told, what is your treaty number? And we don't have a name, even though we have a name that is registered to us, but it's a number. The non-natives that are here, I don't think you do have a number. You are given a name, and that stays with you to the rest of your life. Some of the things that I encountered growing up in a residential school were we were forbidden to speak our own language. If we were caught speaking our own language, we were punished. We were given the strap. And the ones that are fortunate enough to go home for the weekend, if you spoke your own language during that week, you couldn't go home for the weekend. You had to stay. Some of them, if you were caught more than once, maybe for 6 months you couldn't go. You couldn't leave the residential school. You were being punished for speaking your own language. So these are some of the tough times that we encountered as we were growing up. And we were forbidden to, some of you that I have known growing up, I was forbidden to call the priest father. Now, can you imagine calling someone else your father? And if you called him by his own Christian name, which we knew their names were. But we were punished for calling his name. We had to call him Father. That wasn't my father. My father was at home. These are some of the things that we just want to, I just want to tell you how things were really tough on us. Things that we wanted to do, we couldn't. We were starving in the residential school. And I think this is where it was introduced to us. In order to survive, you have to steal for your own food to survive. And teachers, some of us just absolutely refused to learn because we were lonesome. We were lonesome for our parents. We were lonesome for our grandparents. And that was being tough. You were tough. You were brought up and taught how to fight. And that's why there's some of us that are really have a big chip on our shoulder. I do. I have a big chip on my shoulder. As I was growing up and when I left the residential school, I thought to myself, no, nobody's going to be telling me what to do anymore. But I had to learn the hard way. I had to forgive, which is really hard for me to do. And when I left the residential school, alcohol was introduced to me. And I'm not afraid to say, I'm not perfect. I drank. I drank to forget what had happened to me and to most of my friends that have gone before me now. But the one thing, when I left residential school, I wanted an education. So I had decided then, you know, if I want to help my people, I'm going to go into a field that will help my people. And what I chose was in the social work field. I went back to school and decided this is what I want to do in the future. This isn't going to be happening to my people anymore. And when I had done, I went into the social work field. I and another person were the first ones on the blood tribe to become child welfare workers. We were introduced. We introduced that child welfare program back in the 70s. Thinking about my people, they're not going to go through the same thing. They had already started taking our children away from home and putting them in the foster homes. And we started this program on the reserve, the first of its kind, 2 of us. We introduced the child welfare program because of what was happening to our children at the time. Without being given a second chance, the parents, they were just taken away. And most of them had died. These young children had died. I witnessed it. They were taken away from home and they were put in the foster home, where they should have gone for medical. They didn't. They were just taken away and put in a foster home. I'm part of a community that still speaks fluent Blackfoot, And I have this elder who has passed on since. His grandchildren, his great-grandchildren, most of them were put in foster home and never returned. And that is part of residential school upbringing. So, and I'm very proud today that something has come about. This reconciliation. And I'm saying, I have been saying, it's about time something. All along, I've been saying something's got to be done. Somebody's got to sit back and listen to us, what has happened. What has happened to me. I'm only speaking for myself. Things that have happened to me that shouldn't be happening to me. I asked my mother, when you were growing up, before residential school, before you went to residential school, did these things happen to you? And she said, I don't want to talk about it. But I will talk about what had happened to her at the time she was growing up. She said Cardston, that was the only place where they could go and shop. She said, right, it was totally different. We were welcome to the town of Cardston. They were still coming around in horse and buggy. And they'd spend a few days here in Cardston. They got along with everybody, the non-natives. They got along with them. And she said, today is different. And I could vouch for that. And this was a few years ago when I was asking her about her time in residential school and the time they were here in Cardston. She's 92 years old today. She's one of the oldest members on the reserve. But going back to the time, she said, back then we were welcome here in Cardston. I guess where the Royal Bank up on top of the hill there, they had, there was a restaurant there. And this owner of that restaurant, a cafe, they would welcome the natives back then, the blood tribe members, and they would feed them. Then there was another one here, I just forget the name of that place, Trading Company, I think she said. This is where you can get your groceries and whatnot. And then sometimes they would get more than what they were asking for because people were generous to them. But I'm not saying, I'm only going back as far as her recollection of the time, then coming back to me. As I was growing up, it was totally different here in Cardston. And like I said, we were made to fight for whatever we wanted. But looking back now, some of my best friends are non-natives that I went to school with here when I was going to elementary school and junior high school. Back then, even the principal were different. We were being bused from residential school to here. And we were still separated. We couldn't mingle with the non-native student kids. So come noon hour, when we broke for lunch, I used to think, you know, this is no different than residential school. Non-native kids were on one side, and us native kids were on the other side. And the principal would just stand there when we were having lunch, and he would just look at us. When we were done eating our lunch, I think he was right there egging us on. Okay, now's the time to mingle. Now's the time to fight one another. And we did. We tried to play games with the non-natives. It was always the natives and the non-natives. And we were just there to fight. So it didn't, it really had an effect on me. You know, going back and thinking about it. Why do we have to fight? Why do we have to argue? Why can't we become one? And that was my goal. I always thought about it. Why can't be one? And today, I'm happy to say that we are. We're no different. Maybe our color of our skin is different, but up here, we're all same. We're all the same. And I'm very happy today, right across Canada, something is being done. Reconciliation, something to really think about. Not only today, it should be every day. So we can all learn to live and become one and stay as a friend. Because I've gone through a long ways to really to think about what has happened to me. And the other thing that really helped me was our culture. If that had ever disappeared along with the things that happened to the First Nations right across Canada, we would be in one hell of a mess, really. But some of us maintain our cultural, we saved it, and we will continue helping one another. The one thing that I would like to see in our schools is that we need to teach both non-natives and native students about what has happened to us. It's got to be built right into their curriculum. It has happened for others, like when the First World War, the Second World War, what has happened back then. It's got to do the same thing for the First Nations, what has happened to us way back and up to sometimes, Like today, for instance, it took so many years for everybody to become one. And when I say to become one, we're no different. Just our color of our skin is different. I had a lot more to say, but I guess we're on a limited time, and I just want to thank everybody that has shown up. So today is a beginning, and it should be every day that we become one and become friends. So thank you. Thank you very much.
I know my elder's pretty short. I had to lift the mic up a little bit. First of all, I would like to thank each and every one of you for coming out and taking this time to share this wonderful day to honor the children that experienced residential school, and for those that are still living, carrying the trauma. Very hard thing to live with. And as you all heard, our elder Rod First Rider, I believe that the information that he had passed on is something that we need to carry and acknowledge the situation to its full length. My parents went through the same, but they never took that time to repeat what they went through and what they experienced. For the way I'm leading my life today, I'm really grateful. There's still a lot of anger that carries within our people. And there are those that carried on in life thinking the positive way. I'd like to thank the town of Cardston for acknowledging this day to honor all the children that suffered. That they will also carry on in life. In a positive way. There is a song that I would like to share with each and every one of you. This song was made by my father, Kenny Scabberrobe. a man we all looked up to, a man who taught us a lot. This man is a song composer that's known across North America. A few years back, he composed a song to help the younger generation. And I think today is an exception to honor those that were just found, that never got to see their parents and their loved ones, which was very painful. Why the government did not expose this. It has carried a lot of anger throughout. Aboriginal communities across Canada, and it has brought back a lot of pain for those that still lived with this. This song that I am going to sing is a praise song. For all the children and for all those that are suffering in some way. It's a prayer song. And I would like to dedicate this song to all these children that were found, and to all our elders that are still living, dealing with the emotions that they experienced. At this time, I would like to ask each and every one of you to stand to honor all these children that have suffered, to all the families that have been affected, and all the ones who had witnessed the trauma and that are still with us today. I like to ask my nephews to sing another song for all those that have been affected. And this is the way we acknowledge our people at a very high level. So at this time, if you can say a silent prayer in your own hearts for our people, that's all we ask for. There's no amount of money around the globe that will ever replace what my people went through. So at this time, I would like to ask my nephews, and I thank them for being here, to share this beautiful day, this beautiful moment. They will sing an honor song for the children and all the people that were being affected. Please say a silent prayer in your own words that they will continue gaining strength.
Thank you so much, Arnold and your group, for this very touching song. I think we all felt something. But at this time, we like to recognize in our midst Councillor Marcel Whistlehead from the Blood Tribe, and we love to give him the opportunity to offer the closing remarks. Marcel, if you are here somewhere. Thank you, my friend.
Thank you, Maggie. First of all, Nustranako Apo Dokan. Kikanaxi Matsin Kanatoni. Sikutaxi that Yanstuxi Taxpo Kihutu. First of all, I want to thank all of you for attending today's special, ceremony. And one of the things that I remember that stand out for a lot of us. I was only 8 years old when I first went to the residential school, and I went to Laverne and I went to Glenwood for I believe grade 1. So I went to back then St. Mary's. My sister Ernestine was 7. Pee Wee was 5. So going to the old St. Mary's residential school, you walk up the stairs and whatnot, or you're greeted by the priest, not knowing what's going to happen, no idea. All of a sudden we were separated, and my sisters went to the left, I went to the right, and really, my whole life changed then. And I think for a lot of us too, because even though we knew that they were only a couple of 100 yards away, we couldn't speak with them in the morning when we had breakfast. We come in, marched in, all lined up to have breakfast and whatnot there, And for a lot of the new kids, the boys and the girls, it was tough, having to understand. And like I'd wonder why, like every night, why am I here, And then I see a lot of the beating that took place early on, and I think for a lot of us, we got scared of the nuns because, there was a lot of physical abuse there. And I think over the years, a lot of people that I've known that have passed on, one of the things that they would always say is that, they turn to violence, when they were in relationships because, they never had a chance to say no, stop that, and whatnot there. So it affected a lot of our people and a lot of our members. For myself, been there for a number of years. I think the only thing that saved me was playing sports. And for a lot of us, that's all we did, to forget about that. We had 2-3 hours practice, just playing ball or football or anything like that. And a lot of good athletes, a lot of good athletes there. And but once, we left, I think all that pain came back and a lot of people turned to alcohol and drugs. And my parents died when we were 13, and I think the boarding school was kind of home, but after I realized, that was just a safe place because we had no place to go. But the abuse continued big time for a lot of us, and we seen that and we couldn't say much. So I just want everybody, and this morning, we're watching a lot of the presentation right across Canada through APTN and a lot of the tribes and, the issues that we're dealing with. And if it wasn't for these burial sites, these graves that were found, I wonder what would be going on. We've been after this truth and reconciliation for a number of years, and it had to take something like that before Canada woke up. And I hope that this doesn't stop after today. We have to continue. And I'll be honest and upfront with a lot of the non-tribal members. I think that's why you see a lot of anger towards Napiquags, towards white people, because, you know, the trust level and the abuse there. And I believe 100% our members are very, very aggressive, you know, when it comes to somebody, you know, putting them down or calling them on the spot or anything like that. So the healing has to begin. And we've all talked about it over and over. Our elders would continue to say that, meaning we have to care for one another. And that's the only way we're going to survive as a nation. So on behalf of our chief, Makinima Roy, I know he couldn't be here, and a member of council, I just want to acknowledge all of you, especially Maggie, for always the hard work. I've known Maggie for a number of years. I work closely with the town of Cardston year after year. And all of you that are up here as well, to our elders and those that are here today. I want to also acknowledge Arnold and, you know, our drummers here. They always do a fine job there, right? So keep that in mind, you know. Imagine, you know, walking upstairs, you know, an 8-year-old. My granddaughter just started school here in town, you know, thinking, and she's 8, and I look at her, you know, she started here kindergarten, grade 1, and thinking, well, those are my little sisters. And I think back and just think how tough it is to see anybody go through. So keep that in mind, how hard it was, you know, for 12 years of my life there. You know, like there's a lot of things that we all want to forget, but it's always there, and it's come back to affect us one way or another, health-wise or relationships or whatnot there, right? So thank you again for coming out. I know there's a lot of events that are happening as well, too, throughout the province, pretty well right across Canada. So I hope that, you know, we don't forget this day, that this, and you know, we move forward and build on it as well too, because we are here, we will always be here. We had a little history lesson just the other day, yesterday, regarding our traditional territory, and that goes right across into the United States, and everybody knows we were here. So that's all we ask, is to respect us, work with us, and we will do the best that we can to build this nation as one there. So again, thank you for coming, and enjoy the rest of the day. But remember, you know, who we are and what we're all about. Thank you. Thank you very much.
So this will conclude our ceremony this day, a day for truth and reconciliation. Please remember to love your children. They're precious. And have a great day. Thank you. And thank you to all of you who came today. You made the day very special. Thanks.